What's up, guys? It's Tuesday, and you know what that means. We're in for another episode of Worlds Asunder. This one we pulled from the vault, went all the way back to the beginning, so you're going to hear some mentions to our old, essentially, podcast publisher, as well as we had some technical difficulties that we've since worked through. So, coming up on Worlds Asunder.
You know, as long as we keep it between here and here, we're good. You know, and it can bounce against the walls sometimes. I don't care. You know, because the stories are better if you're not stifling somebody's creativity.
As storytellers, we want to capture the hearts, minds, and imaginations of our readers, mainly through our expertly crafted worlds.
Creating new worlds in any genre might seem like a daunting task, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every story.
Welcome, weary writers, to Worlds Asunder, a world-building and writer's life podcast.
My co-host is David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's H.Y. Gregor, or you can call her Haley, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
Together, we've got enough published to fill a small shelf, but why should you listen to us? Because we called in some favors.
Every other week, we bring you the best and brightest to give you the tips and tricks on world building and character building like the pros. So, open up your ear holes.
Get out your pen and paper.
And get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder. This week on Worlds Asunder, we talk to Chris Kennedy of Chris Kennedy Publishing. It's the one where we started. Enjoy. So I hate to do this, but we're going to start with the technical difficulty warning. Somebody forgot to turn on their microphone, so we've had to patch together a bunch of the audio. And unfortunately, I'm still doing a little bit of learning on how some of these microphones work. So bear with us while we get through this episode. Thanks. Hey, what's up, guys?
Sorry.
I'm keeping that one. That's the cut I'm keeping. Welcome to Worlds Asunder, the working title of the podcast discussing world building in creative writing, both fantasy, sci-fi, speculative fiction, whatever you can think of. My guest today, or really I should probably start by introducing myself. This is even better.
Who are you?
Yeah. So I'm David Shadoin, Shady. I am currently working for Book Career in a Year to bring you this podcast. I'll be one of your co-hosts. My other co-host, H.Y. Gregor, Haley, is over here. She's going to be helping me out conducting a lot of these interviews. And we're going to try and bring you a bunch of different guests from a bunch of different backgrounds. But this first guest that we're bringing on today is somebody a little bit closer to home for both of us. He's a Webster Award winner and a 3-time Dragon Award finalist. He is a prolific publisher with 400 plus books to his name, as well as an author with at least 30 plus books, writing in the Theogony series, writing with David Weber, and writing in the Terran Republic series with Chuck Gannon. But he's most well known for the universe that we're gonna delve into a little bit today, which is the Four Horseman Universe. He is the factory boss of Chris Kennedy Publishing. Welcome, Chris Kennedy.
Hey, thanks, Shady. Thanks for having me here. Great to be here.
We're excited to have you, especially because, you know, we are talking to newer authors, and we are talking to, you know, an audience who wants to learn, much like Haley and I have been able to learn from you and from many others. So we're kind of making a revenge tour by bringing all of you guys on, you know, making sure that everybody gets all the same treatment that we got.
Well, it's a good place to start talking with the Four Horseman Universe, because that's been the first book for a lot of different authors. It's started a lot of careers, so it's a great place to start for us.
Started my career, in fact. But yeah, so it's, you know, as you said, it has started a lot of careers, and you have always been good about when you throw out anthologies and stuff. You're always really good about having open calls, and you try and get, you know, at least 4 new authors, especially in the 4HU.
Absolutely. That was something that's very important to me. when I first started, I got into an anthology that I really had no business being part of. I was somebody that didn't have anything. It was my first book, or my first story. It probably was awful. I'm afraid to go back and read it. So you know, I want to do that for the next generation and help them along. And you know, like I said, it's really important to me. It's also important to Mark Wandry, who's the co-creator of the universe.
Yeah. And yeah, and on that note, you and Mark started this with 4 books. One of them sitting here in front of you, The Golden Horde. Can you talk us through and describe the process, like when Mark pitched you Cartwright's Cavaliers, and then how that developed, and how the both of you took that, and you know. There's a story.
Yeah. Well, it starts, you know, like all good publishing stories, in a bar. We were at a convention having a beer one night, and he said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a series." I said, "Okay, well, tell me about it." And he did, and he said, "You know, it's this new universe, people driving powered armor, you know," and he explained a little bit to me, and I thought it sounded great. And he said, "Hey, you know, I know you're publishing some people. So, you know, we'd run it through your publishing company." Well, okay, great. When, you know, would you like to write it with me? And I said, "Well, I'm kind of working on something right now. I had my own series I was doing." I said, "But let me finish it, and sure, I'd love to do it with you. Sounds good." Well, it took me a whole year to finish the things that I was doing. So I happened to see him again at the same convention the next year, and I said, "Hey, whatever happened to, you know, that book you were writing? It was Cartwright's Cavaliers, right?" And he says, "Well, I haven't really done anything with it." And I was like, "Well, why not? I told you I wanted to be part of this." And he said, "You do? I thought you were just pushing me off." And I was like, "No, I want to be part of it. You know, tell me about it." And he said, "Well, I've got the first book almost finished." And I said, "Great. You know, do you have it here? Can I read it?" And he said, "Sure." So he sent it to me, and I stayed up way past my bedtime that night because it was really good. And in the next morning, I said, "You know, I've got some bad news for you." And he was like, "Oh, you didn't like it." I said, "No, we're gonna have to write a lot of books together." He was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to it." And you know, so we sat down. This was middle of the afternoon. We sat down. The bar was closed, but we sat there, and you know, he said, "Okay, well, I've got these 4 companies as the 4 Horsemen." And I said, "That's great, but I'll write 2, but I don't want those other 2. I want to do these 2 things." And he said, "Okay." And that was Asbrand Solutions and the Golden Horde. So we started. I actually finished Asbrand before he finished Cartwright's. And he said, "Well, go ahead and launch it." And I was like, "No, this isn't the first book. You wrote the first book. It needs to be that." So we set that one up, and then I did Asbrand, he did Winged Hussars, and I did Golden Horde.
So did you rapid release structure the series from the start?
We had planned to do them fairly close together. They weren't that. This was 2017, so it was kind of before the whole rapid release thing. But it took that on eventually. We put out the first 4 books, and then we wanted to expand the universe a little bit. So I asked all my author friends, I said, "Hey, would you like to write a short story? We're going to do an anthology." And I was hoping for 14. I ended up with 42.
Wow.
Because the universe is just so much fun to play in that everyone wanted to do it. So the book that was going to be a fistful of credits became a fistful of credits for a few credits more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Merc. And from there, all the people that wrote short stories were like, "Hey, would you be interested in a full-length story?" Yes, I would. And so, you know, the 2 of us then became about 10. And for about 3 years, we released a book every 3 weeks. which is how the series grew to 93 books as of the next one. As of yours, well, it's 93 now. You'll be 94.
Your new lucky number.
Lucky number 94.
So yeah, and so we did that for 2.5 years, and we started losing readers because they just couldn't keep up. So we've kind of slowed it back to like every 5 or 6 weeks now.
Gotcha.
Way slow.
Yeah, way slow.
So you mentioned Mark was kind of the driving force. He'd already come up with the 4 companies, but between the two of you, and you guys produced the 4 books, what was really the catalyst? Like, what was kind of the idea behind expanding that universe? Because you said you immediately started inviting other authors. Was it more on the business side of things, where you were thinking about getting more of that, like more books out quickly, or were you more looking like, oh, this is a great creative sandbox, but I don't have all the ideas?
Actually, a little of both, probably. We definitely wanted to bring in more people to expand it, to be able to get books out faster. There were still some things, some other opportunities, some things I wanted to write outside of the universe, and didn't want to get, be stuck only in that for, a long time. Knowing that, back then you needed to put out a book at least every 3 months, or people forget about you. Now it's a little bit narrower than that. So we wanted to be able to produce more, but we also wanted to expand the universe, to get other people's ideas. We knew that there was going to be the first 4 books, and then there was going to be war, but we didn't know exactly how we wanted to handle all that. So having some new voices. One of the first stories in the first anthology was about this woman peacemaker by Kevin Eikenberry, and I approached him and said, "Hey, we need a full-length book." That full-length book then took a life of its own and started a Peacemaker series. So there were lots of different things that, as more people came in, we kind of grew out. And then I, as publisher, did everything I could to grow everything back in again, so that they'd all be meaningful. Because you, as a reader, you don't want to read something that isn't meaningful to the universe. So we had to then tie them all back in, and somebody'd start a new company, and I'd bring them in for something else, and that kept everybody involved with a good buy-in for the series. So, the more authors we have talking about the series, the further out it goes from a marketing standpoint. So we're getting audiences from, 20 people rather than just Mark and mine. That was really before a lot of the Amazon ads and Facebook marketing, those were all still just kind of growing, not really as big as they are now. So, that was a way of growing the audience also.
So if you would expand on the Peacemakers and how the series kind of branched out, you ended up with a couple of core authors, and people started developing their own little nooks and crannies of the universe. So how did you guys help maintain continuity of world building when it started to do this and your space cats started scattering? How did world building specifically develop differently in each of those cores?
The way that we keep it all together is we have a Bible that Mark put together that everybody reads and then forgets about. But since I'm the publisher, I've read every single one, and it's incumbent on me to make sure that they all stay true to the Bible. I also have a proofreader who's really good. Shout out to Zach Ritz. Who also jumps in on all of them, and he'll go, "Hey, I don't know about this," and I'll fix it. I think there have been very few people that have come in that haven't needed at least a tweak or two. There's, for example, in the universe, you enter a Stargate to go into hyperspace, but you don't exit through a Stargate. You just drop out into an emergence area, and everybody wants to put a Stargate on the other end, and it's like, nope, doesn't work. There is no artificial gravity. People have artificial gravity. Nope, that doesn't work.
And I guess we didn't really introduce 4HU. So you guys are up to how many alien races now?
Oh golly.
how many planets and how many-
Probably, there's probably about 100 races now. There are 37 mercenary races.
And they're all very distinct. So anyone who builds out the different races, they have really defined characteristics for the different aliens that they're in.
We started a wiki to kind of keep all of this straight, but it grew beyond the ability of Rob Howell to keep up with.
Yeah, because it was fast.
Because it was every 3 weeks, boom, there's another 100,000 words. Boom, there's another 100,000 words. And he was like, can you slow down? No, we can't slow down. Must go faster.
Jump into light speed. So kind of on that note, right? So we were talking about the world building aspect of it. It did branch out a ton, but where do you and Mark kind of perceive that you started? Did you start with the characters, right? The four different distinct mercenary races, or did you start with a plot line?
Well, it's not four different merc races. The Four Horsemen are all human.
Sorry, four companies, yeah.
Yeah, but we started with those four companies, led by an individual. Each one, has the character, and that was the start. The company name was, not as important as the actual person. Gotcha. And then they're putting down their story, and as Mark did the first one, Cartwright's Cavaliers. It was a standalone. Asburan Solutions came second. I think they touch once, and then Winged Hussars touches a couple more, and then Golden Horde is talking to all of them, yeah. so that it all ties together, and then having brought everybody together, then they all end up going off to fight. You've got peacemakers now from Eikenberry, who's trying to keep the peace, trying to keep people from doing bad things. In a large galaxy, though, that's not always possible. And one of the things that each race, when they come into the Galactic Union, has to do is they have to provide peacemakers. They have to do their own part. So if you want to play, you have to pay.
Makes sense. So then, you have these four character leads. You have a kind of a thread of a plot through the first four books. When did you know that you were, or how did that work out in your mind that now you have this central plot line that you're going to kind of bring all of these people back?
Well, we knew the central plot line. We knew where they were all going to meet, okay. and where we were going from there. It got a little more, we knew the basics. And as more people came in, we'd add what they were doing. So there was a little pile, and then it got bigger, and then it got bigger, and as more people came in and brought their mercenary companies, we added them in, and that gave us the ability to attack planets and do all sorts of things because we had more people now. One company of 50, 100, 200 people isn't going to do anything more than just a single objective. If you're going to do something large scale, you need a whole lot more.
And so when you were looking, and I'm going to kind of read into this for the audience a little bit, when you were looking kind of down the line, you knew that you were going to need, especially if you wanted to do planet scale invasion type things, you knew you were going to need a lot of ideas. And so building out to these core authors, and then even beyond them, right, for them recruiting other authors, it really just gave you a ton of essentially options on what you could do.
Right, and we would approach people, typically people that wrote good stories in the anthologies. There are now, I think, 12 anthologies, and we use them to help build, because we would, turn it open to probably 6, 8, 10, established authors, get 4 new people in, and we'd say, okay, here's where we're going, here's where you need to stay in this box. But if you have a new idea that you want to do, run it by me or Mark, and we'll talk about it. And that's where some of the best ideas came from, is opening it up and just talking about stuff. There are 6 core authors for the universe that run the main storyline. But the other stuff is just as valuable because it gives the main storyline breadth and depth, and turns it into a galaxy rather than just one story happening in the middle of it.
So in that, right, so you're touching on the point of world building being a very flexible aspect, especially when you start expanding out, like beyond being just a single author, right? When you start working with a stable full of authors all working towards the same objective. Being flexible, being able to kind of like see some of the new ideas. Maybe it wasn't quite the idea that you were thinking, but it worked out.
Well, that happened a lot of times with Mark, because Mark had in his mind exactly how everything was going to go. And other people would come in and, for example, we'll talk Peacemakers. Kevin Eikenberry wrote the story about the Peacemaker. And Mark said, but I wanted to do that. I said, you didn't do that. You wrote a different story. But I was going to do that later. And it's like, well, if you let people into your sandbox, you got to let them play with some of the toys. And he was like, oh, okay. There actually were 2 stories about Peacemakers, and I was going to write a third. So, but with Ike turning in his, and Paul Corcoran turning in his, I was like, okay, I'll do something else. Two is plenty, for something that's a little bit smaller. So that was very hard a few times, especially for Mark. It wasn't as much for me, because I knew all along, as long as we keep it between here and here, we're good, and it can bounce against the walls sometimes. I don't care, because the stories are better if you're not stifling somebody's creativity. So I try and let the new authors, basically do whatever they want within the guidelines of the universe, and they've got to keep the same tech. That's been a problem a few times where we're at like book 87 and somebody says, hey, I've got this new weapon and it's gonna be more powerful than anything else. And I'm like, where was it the first 86 books? Because the readers are going to want to know.
So the readers know more than some of the writers do because they've read all of them.
The readers have read all of the books. The authors typically have only read theirs or a few books plus theirs. Mark was doing good at reading all of them up until about the 50s, yeah. and then he stopped. So we've had discussions where he's been, hey, we need to do this, and I'm like, we can't, because in book 67 we said no, that doesn't work. He's like, but I want it to work. Well, it's too late. You should have read that one.
Well, so we're going to be doing another episode later talking about world building and other genres. But for science fiction, I mean, you mentioned you have a galaxy. So the core, there's endless space, literally.
Billions and billions of stars.
Yeah. So how do you put a cap on that? As far as tech or new races or new plot lines or other things. How do you keep down the things that don't work?
Well, most people want to play with the races that are already there. Some people don't. Some want to do their own thing, and that's fine. But at this stage of the game, you have to figure out a way to make them integrate without well, why haven't we heard of them before? Oh, okay. Well, they're out on this arm, of the galaxy. They're, just now starting to come in toward us. That's, so they're new. Okay, that makes sense. Things like that. It has to have a good reason for not being known already at this stage of the game, and that's fine. I mean, it could be an alien race that hasn't left their planet yet. If they haven't left their planet, well, we wouldn't have seen them out and about, killing aliens and getting paid, which is the motto for the universe.
I can imagine worse ways to make money.
Yeah. Did I answer the question? I kind of went off on a ramble on that, but
That's what we're here for. No, I think that the challenge would be when you have so many directions for people to go. That you might
there is, and the goal with the universe is to bring it to a completion of the main storyline next year, hopefully. That's the goal. I don't know if it's achievable, but
created a monster.
well, yeah, and you know, it's not fair to the readers to not bring it to a conclusion somewhere along the way. But once we do, there's still plenty of room to write stories. There's still stuff going on because, like you said, you know, there's billions of stars out there. People are doing stuff every day. Some people are good, some people are bad. You know, there's races that are into slavery and all sorts of stuff, and you know, people that are going to stand up and fight them and you know, do something for the common good. And we'll still have the universe open for that. We'll probably run different series, but we want to bring the main storyline, such as, you know, what we've already alluded to. You know, there are certain bad people that have to be dealt with. They'll have to be dealt with.
So you've written mill sci-fi, and you're very prolific in that. You know, between all the different series that you have. And we're going to kind of change gears up here.
You gave me credit for 35. I actually have 65 books that I've written.
So I need to go update your Goodreads profile, apparently.
Apparently. Is that Goodreads? Nah,
Goodreads was like 30
my bad.
plus books or something like that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And I didn't go and individually count them all. But it's a really nice problem to have.
I think there's 65 books. 65 that I've written, so there's still 2 more that haven't come out yet. So I've got 63 in print and about 40 different short stories in various anthologies.
And that's why he's the factory boss.
Well, and then one of the things, I was remiss in missing it, but I'm gonna bring it up in this question, was you did Uplink Squadron.
I did.
Too, right? So how much of your mill sci-fi works are kind of based off of your previous life experiences as a former military aviator?
A lot of them, actually, because I like writing that. Yeah. You know, in space, without, you know, certain hand-wavium sort of things, fighters don't work very well. But people like reading about fighters. You know, you want Luke Skywalker pulling G's and shooting things and dropping bombs, and so that's, you know, what I tend to write. You know, I try and make it where it's a viable thing, as opposed to, you know, oh, well, if this, then we've got this tech and fighters would get killed before they even get here, and, you know, okay, but that's not fun.
Yeah, you have to balance that with really cool.
Right, and I like writing really cool, fun stuff where people do good things. You know, you've got a sense of camaraderie, you know, among the squadron, people fighting for each other. And in standing up, good versus evil, and that's what I like to read. So that's what I like to write. And I was a bomber. I was a bombardier for 7 years in the Navy, and then went and flew reconnaissance planes. So you know, I understand fighters. I understand bombers. I understand dogfighting. I understand attack in breaking down defenses. So. It's fun. It's fun for me to think about, and I like writing it. So, yeah.
How did that translate to writing Earth-based novels or science fiction versus Four Horsemen, which a lot of times doesn't take place on Earth or anywhere that we have frame of reference? Is there a similarity, or is there any kind of drastic difference between the things that you write about?
Well, the text stays the same wherever they go, and you know, going to different planets lets you use your creativity, do some of that world building thing. You know, come up with a planet and why is it the way it is? Why are the people the way they are? What's going on there? And keep it fresh. You know, with a series that has, you know, 90 some books, you know, it would be easy to have it become stale, but it never has, because we've brought in different authors that brought in different takes on things. They go to different planets. They have different, you know, different villains. So the ability to have all of those planets actually is a good thing.
So when people who maybe don't have your background in certain things are trying to develop like new sci-fi technologies or crafts like vessels or anything, where would you suggest people start as far as research, and how much of the things that they try to do should be based on research to kind of help readers with that suspension of disbelief?
Well, every reader's different, and some are going to like the stuff that's way out there, plasma weapons and all sorts of things. The Army and the Navy put out future technology calls and what they're looking for and what they're looking at doing down the road. That's a great place to start, because that's shoot, you can look at the news every day and what's going on in Ukraine. And, oh, look, drone warfare. Okay. Well, I didn't think drones. Yeah, I didn't think that drones were going to be a big thing. Hey, look, there they are every single day. Yeah. You got the Russians shooting hypersonic missiles. When that's the first usage of them. Okay. Well, now that we got those, where do we go with those? How do we stop them?
The Iron Dome stuff that Israel just implemented last week. All of the anti-missile technology is super cool too.
One of the CKP authors from a while back that wrote fantasy helped develop that. That was his day job, was doing Iron Dome.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the One Where We Started Part 1. We hope you enjoyed listening to Chris talk about what publishers are looking for, and a little bit of how he started a giant universe with now over 24 different authors. Might even be a higher number. We're sitting around 104 books, and to be fair, that's where my next book is coming out in, the Four Horseman Universe series. So go check it out if you get a chance. As always, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you, even if you only stick around for a little bit. As long as you learn some things, we're happy with it. Make sure to go check out our show notes, where you can follow us anywhere. Next week, or really 2 weeks from now, is the One Where We Started Part 2, again with Chris Kennedy. Don't worry, it'll be a banger. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. We'll see you next time.